Hello and welcome to the show today. My guest is a talented voice actress who you may recognise from the following clip.
Alright, new plan. Act natural, we've done nothing wrong. Hello!
Oh, it's you.
You know her?
It's been a long time. How have you been? I've been really busy being dead. You know, after you murdered me.
You did what? Oh no! No, 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 no! Oh no, 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 no! Ah!
Okay, look, we both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us. For science, you monster.
Isn't that just wonderful? And I can't believe I'm saying this, ladies and gentlemen. Ellen McLain.
Hello? Am I speaking to
Hello.
Caboose?
Yes, you are.
Caboose, I am very pleased to be speaking with you today.
Okay, set the phone in the background.
I'm not going to answer it because it's just somebody trying to sell me something.
Oh, fair
And
enough.
I don't want to buy.
Fair enough. Great start to this.
So how are you today, Caboose?
I'm fine, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, you are so very welcome.
Now, of course, with all my interviews, I like to start at the beginning. Now, of course, beginning with you, like theatrical work. So, what got you into like opera singing, then theatrical work?
Well, since I was a very little girl, my first love has always been singing. And I don't remember when I started singing. I think I started singing and talking at the same time. And I knew from a very young age that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing. And, I started studying voice seriously when I was 13 years old and, really pursued it. Very seriously. I went to an arts high school to study voice. And then my bachelor's degree and master's degree are in voice, and I moved to New York and I wanted to be an opera singer. And but I started also auditioning for music theater. And I'm actually telling you, I'm going to make this short. I was in Europe on a tour of a Broadway musical called Showboat, and I met my husband. And my husband was in the orchestra, and I was one of the actors on stage, singing and acting and dancing. And my husband has a fabulous voice, and you probably know who my husband is because he is the voice of the sniper on Team Fortress 2, and he is the voice of all the citizens on Half-Life 2, and he's done a lot of game work. His name is John Patrick Lowrie. So I was always this singer, actor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for years since we got married, and we got married in 1986, we are old. Since then, my husband has said, get a voice demo, get a voice demo, get a voice demo, get a voice demo. And he said that for decades. And finally, in 2002, I got a voice demo. So GLaDOS, me getting GLaDOS is all because of my husband, John Patrick Lowrie. I give him total credit. And that's how I got into voice acting. And, I have always been an actor. And my training, of course, was in singing. And I was always singing, singing, singing. But when I moved to New York in 1979, I would go to auditions, and my singing was always, very strong, and I got a lot of good feedback on my singing. But at that point, I realized that I needed to work on my acting. So really, to do voice work, what people need to work on is their acting. Because I'd done all the singing stuff, but I think as a singer, being very concerned with what my voice sounded like did kind of give me a leg up on voice acting because I've always been very aware and very conscious of the sound. And when you're a voice actor, it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter how tall you are, how fat you are, or how old you are, all of which all of which works beautifully for me. It's the acting. It's the acting, it's the acting, and it's being able to do different voices. And so it's all about the ear. And I think that my musical preparation, my operatic preparation, made me very conscious of what kind of sounds I was creating, and gave me technical control over what kind of sounds I made. So in '02, I made a voice demo, and I'll tell you, Caboose, at that point, voiceover auditions were making a shift. It used to be that voiceover actors would actually go into a studio, make an audition with the client present. But in '02, everything was shifting over, and it all started to just be uh, making recordings, making MP3 files on your computer at home and emailing them. John and I email our MP3 auditions to our agent. And then our agent, Jamie Lopez with the Actors Group, sends out the auditions to the clients or to the studios that the clients are using. And it's all done from home now. And in 2002, that technology was rapidly changing. And quite frankly, very few female voice artists had made the transition. I mean, I don't want this to sound sexist, but the male voice artists, and not all of them, but my husband is very technically savvy, and he had made the transition. And he'd bought, all the, software that he needed and a microphone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he had us all set up at home so we could do the auditions and, follow the technology. And actually, my husband's a really great guy, and he has helped several of our female colleagues in getting set up to do auditions at home. He's very generous, and I want to say to him, honey, why are you helping my competition? But really, both John and I feel that, the more the merrier, the more the merrier. So, but in '02, the agent, my husband's agent, Jamie Lopez at the Actors Group, took me immediately because I was a female voice talent who had the new technology. So that also helped me in getting into the voiceover field. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Caboose?
Oh, that makes absolute sense. So, I mean, eventually you got into games, as you said. I mean, you started like Half-Life 2. So, how was it when you got the message from Fowl saying you got the role to start doing the voice for them?
Well, this is funny. When I first started, any voiceover job was a voiceover job. And you rarely have any preparation when you go into the studio. And a lot of people in town, I mean, there are several very good recording studios in Seattle. And the recording studio that Valve always uses is Pure Audio. Pure Audio on First Avenue in Seattle. And they're wonderful people at Pure Audio. And very talented, and this is the studio that Valve always uses to record the acting talent, to record the voices. And so, I would go down to Pure Audio. I wouldn't know what I was recording. I had done the audition at home. And lots of times I wouldn't even, because I did lots of auditions. And so I wouldn't even know what I had gotten. You know, it's like I wouldn't connect the audition to the gig. It's just I did the audition, and then Jamie would email me and say, Ellen, you've been booked. You know, be at Pure Audio at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. And so I'd go down to Pure Audio at 10 a.m., not having any idea what I was going to be recording.
So you didn't know it was going to be for a game, a commercial?
It didn't matter to me. It was a gig, you know? So when I first did, you know, I guess I did Half-Life 2 first. And it's like, well, I don't know what this is. I went in, they told me what they wanted, I did it, and I left. And it didn't really even make, you know, a dent on me. And it actually wasn't until the game was released that Valve sent us some, you know, sort of fan memorabilia, like, you know, a t-shirt and, you know, kind of fun stuff about Half-Life, you know. And you know, it was my husband who said, well, the game's just been released. And, you know, quite frankly, I didn't even know what that meant. And it was like, and I couldn't even remember what I had done. And then it was, you know, it was after Half-Life 2 that I did another audition. And the direction on the audition was for Portal, for GLaDOS. You know, I didn't even know she was called GLaDOS. I didn't even know it was called Portal. Nothing. The audition was listen to this sound clip and try and sound as much like this sound clip as possible. And of course, what the sound clip was a computer-generated voice, which Valve had used in their in their preliminary creations of the game, but it was copyrighted, so they couldn't use it, or they would have had to have paid that company a whole bunch of money, which they didn't want to do.
Fair enough.
And it was cheaper for them to hire an actor to try and sound like that. And as I like to say, since I'm a soulless automaton, I was able to sound like this computer-generated voice. And it wasn't even until I got it, you know, and I did the audition. You know, I did the audition, I didn't even think anything about it. And you know, and I got the gig and I went in, but when I went in, I didn't know what gig it was I was going in for. You know, I just knew, well, it's another voiceover gig. I'll go in and they'll tell me what to do. And that's how it started. But as the game went along, you know, Bill Van Buren, Eric Wolpaw, it was really, you know, Eric, Kim Swift, Jay was around a little bit. Jay Pinkerton was around a little bit, but it was mainly Bill and Eric on you know, the first game, on Portal, you know, telling me, well, say it this way, say it this way. And they're very good at directing me. I really like them as directors because they don't give me line readings. They give me an emotional quality. They'll say, you know, oh, GLaDOS is being a little, you know, sarcastic here. And of course, you know, they didn't even come up with the name while we were, you know, creating the game and they were recording me. They hadn't come up with the name yet. I don't think that was, you know, maybe they had, but they didn't tell me. But, you know, I did a few recording sessions before they even said, okay, we've decided that the character's name is, you know, GLaDOS, GLaDOS, as in the operating system. And you know, Caboose, I am a technophobe, but I was old enough to get it, that, you know, DOS, because everybody called it DOS, the DOS operating system. And I am old enough to know what that was. So GLaDOS or GLaDOS was like, oh, I get that. It's a pun. Wisdom comes with age.
Very true, very true. Now, as you said, you did the voice of GLaDOS, and when Portal's released, it was a very massive game. Everyone loved it, and the character GLaDOS became a big hit. I mean, when did it occur to you that such a character was doing so well?
Well, it really was after the release because people started emailing me. Fans went to the trouble of finding my email address and they started emailing me. And I thought, wow, that had never happened to me before. So, um, and I would, and I have to say I was slow on some, but I eventually answered all those emails. I answer all my email. I really answer all my email. It depends on how busy I am. This spring when Portal 2 was released, I was doing a stage show, doing a show like 8 times a week. And it's like I did, and I teach, and I have 2 church jobs, and I do work for the Seattle Opera Guild, and I have a million different jobs to make a living. That's what you have to do. As an artist, you have to do more than one job. And obviously, I do this voiceover work. I like to say I'll do anything for $1. But that's kind of what you have to be prepared to do when you try to make a living in the arts. You have to be versatile. And so anyway, so the first game's released, and and all my friends over at Valve are telling me, "Oh, Ellen, it's a huge hit," and at first, I didn't even go on, go on YouTube or anything. And I think then somebody said, "Oh, Ellen, you should Google, the game on YouTube. You should Google your name and see what's coming up." And I eventually did that, and it was like, oh, this is a really popular game. So the cool thing is, Caboose, the first time I wasn't nervous at all because I didn't know what it was. It didn't mean anything to me. It was a voiceover gig. I was doing this to supplement my income. But I must say that at the very end, when I recorded Still Alive with Jonathan Colton, that was fabulous for me because I love to sing. And the fact that they were going to have the character of GLaDOS sing a song at the end of the game, it was like, this is so totally cool because the fellas at Valve knew I was a singer. Because, we worked together a lot and I was recording and recording and recording. And, Seattle's not that big a town. And it's like, well, Ellen's a singer. And, for them to, leap of faith, let me record this song. And I'm not really a pop singer. I really am an opera singer, although I did on Still Alive, I wanted to do the sound that seemed to be the kind of sound that GLaDOS would create. I wanted to do that on the first song. And that's sort of the sound that we came up with. I mean, that's the thing, I could have used several different sounds in the studio when we were recording Still Alive. And we did. I experimented with, making different kinds of vocal sounds. But this kind of pure little boy soprano sound, this kind of early music sound, without a lot of hormones in it, without a lot of, female opera, not that kind of sound, but
Oh wow, nice one.
ooh, this was a triumph. This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. And I'm not warmed up. But you hear the difference in the sound that can be created. And we, everybody, I consider everybody who worked on Valve, except maybe the lawyers, everybody who worked on the Valve games as artists. I'm sorry, some of my best friends are lawyers. I have to say that. But everybody at Valve is an artist. Everybody at Valve is an artist. And so all of the artists who were at the studio, our recording engineers, Scott and Steve, sometimes it was Steve, sometimes it was Scott. But, Bill and Eric and, everybody involved, they're all artists. So it on the first game and on Portal 2, it has been a fabulous collaborative process with very collegial feeling, very simpatico people, artists, just a wonderful artistic collaborative experience. And I am very, very grateful. And yeah, I was glad that I got paid to do it. But, I've gotten paid to do a lot of different gigs, and I don't wax poetic about other gigs that I've done. There's some gigs that I can say, well, yeah, I did that for the money. But not these games. This was a wonderful collaborative process among artists.
Well, with Gladys being such a huge hit, she also became a very quotable character. I mean, people reference her all over the internet and everything. So, you as the voice of Gladys, what is your favorite quote?
Well, my favorite quote is from the first game, and my favorite line is, "Killing you and giving you good advice aren't mutually exclusive." I would like to say that to my husband sometimes. Killing you and giving you good advice aren't mutually exclusive. But he never listens to me. So I like that quote. I don't know. I just think I think there's so many things from, and I must say that I'm much more familiar with some of the lines from, the first Portal, because I've just heard them more often. But, they would in recording for Portal 2, and I should say, I was telling you about, what it was like recording for Portal 1. Contrasting to Portal 1, with Portal 2, I was nervous. And everybody was nervous, quite frankly, because Portal 1 was such a huge success that nobody expected. It was just this kind of little add-on to the Orange Box, and everybody thought it was just, this kind of little. In Louisiana, in New Orleans, people say it's a little lagniappe, which means a little extra, So it was just this little lagniappe for the Orange Box. And it was the hit, this huge hit. So much, much, much thought went into Portal 2. And they started with one idea and, changed their minds. And, when I got the call that, we were going to do a sequel, it was like, oh, goody. I am so glad. But I was nervous because the first game was so popular. And it's there's a great guitarist named B.B. King, very, very famous. I'm sure you've heard of him. But somebody asked him once, Mr. King, huh?
What made The Thrill Is Gone such a hit?
Yeah, my husband's home now, and he said, he had a hit song called "The Thrill Is Gone," and so somebody asked B.B. King, what made "The Thrill Is Gone" such a hit? And B.B. King said, "Well, God, if I knew that, everything I did would be a hit." So, the creators at Valve and me, it was like, oh my God, we have so much pressure on us now. And I can tell you that we all felt pressure. We all felt pressure putting together Portal 2. And a lot of thought, a lot of time. I mean, that's the thing about Valve. Valve doesn't rush their artistic product. They don't rush it. They, they take their time with it. They want to really produce good products every single time, and they take great care with it, great time with it. And on Portal 2, I was, not involved in the decision-making process so much, but they told me every, if the story was going to take a different direction, they told me. Every time I went to the recording studio, every time I went to Pure Audio, they would say, okay, so now we're thinking that the game is going to go this direction, plot-wise. And this is going to happen to GLaDOS, and this is going to happen to Chell, and this is going to, Wheatley, Cave Johnson, every step of the way, from the very beginning, they told me, what the thought was, and they showed me, visual art. They showed me visual art that had been created. They showed me what aperture science was going to look like when the player first discovers GLaDOS again. They showed me that at the studio. They were very careful about letting me know exactly what was happening. And you see, this is really what an actor needs. The first time around, yeah, they'd give me direction for, each different line, and they would tell me what was happening, but not in such depth. For Portal 2, they told me everything.
So you're definitely a lot more involved with the behind the scenes of the second game than the first game.
They told me what was happening to all the characters so that I could really put myself into the story arc and into, because, the odd thing is even though GLaDOS is a computer, she really does have an emotional life. It's warped. But she does have an emotional life, and even on the first game, she's psychotic, but she was affected. GLaDOS has objectives. Actors always talk about objectives. Well, GLaDOS's objective is to test. I want to test. Testing is my life. So, it was, GLaDOS wanted some things, and GLaDOS, when Wheatley takes over Aperture Science and puts GLaDOS, spoiler alert, when GLaDOS gets put into a potato, she is not happy about this.
I think I would be unhappy too if I was turned into a potato, to be honest.
Caboose, I just want to say that my husband, John Patrick Lowrie, is here now. John, say hello.
Hello, Caboose. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Nice to meet you, John.
You're a very handsome fellow. I love the full lips. And just hat. It's very nice.
And your little friends who are with you. We also like your little friends who are in the background.
Is this what all British people look like now? Anyway, nice to meet you. Check it.
It's next to it's at my place at the couch.
Okay, good.
See, we're so old that I have my reserved spot on the couch. That is my spot. And my husband better not sit there. That's what happens when you get old, Caboose. I'm warning you. We don't like change. But that actually helped me, because GLaDOS didn't like change. She didn't like change.
She definitely had something in common with her.
She wanted to test. She wanted things to be predictable. She wanted to be able to kill a test subject. Well, she didn't intend to kill the test subject, but that was a side effect of testing, which she didn't really care about. the testing, my life for art, etc. I live for art. I live for
test
testing.
subjects' lives for art.
Yes, my test subjects' lives for art. I don't care about them.
Okay, so as you say, you've been in the sound studios, you've been nervous. I mean, is that like the hardest part of being a voice actor? Like, is it the nerves, or is it trying to get the lines right?
Well, interestingly enough, one is usually never nervous in a voiceover gig. You just don't get nervous. When actors talk about being nervous, they're on stage. You're in front of a live audience. You don't want to screw up in front of a live audience. But in the studio, you're just there creating. So it's a very different atmosphere than live performance. Except that for me, for Portal 2 and for the other creators, I don't know that we felt, well, I felt nervous in the studio because I was actually performing. I was using my voice to say the GLaDOS lines and, putting them, recording them for use. And I wanted it to be good. But the other folks, the producers and the writers, they felt pressure to do a good job. It's a little bit different from performance nerves. I had a little bit of well, more than a little bit, but I had some performance nerves in the studio because I was actually talking and singing, you know. But and that is different than most voiceover jobs, or gig as I call it, a voiceover gig, which is an old jazz term.
It's like knackered.
Like knackered, right. And the listeners may not know this, but Caboose very kindly explained to me what knackered meant. So, I didn't want to knacker up the recording. Is that, you use it as a verb?
Yeah, you can definitely use it as a verb, like, don't knack it up.
So,
So, like you've done like at least one voice per game on the Orange Box and Portal. What was like your favorite role? Was it doing GLaDOS? Was it doing like the announcer?
It is GLaDOS. But I have to say that I do love the announcer. And I love the announcer even more now because a fan created a visual, picture, a cartoon of who she thought or what she thought the announcer looked like. And the announcer is pencil thin with a gray streak in the hair, chain smoker, and this, this sound. How could you? Really? That kind of sound. And I love the artist's impression of the announcer so much. And Valve loved it so much that Valve bought it. And I have no idea what Valve paid. But I know that Valve owns that, artistic rendering of the announcer now. And I do like the announcer, and I find the announcer so fun. But GLaDOS is really the character that I love most because she has a heart in a very kind of odd sort of way. And I think that in the second game, the way the writers, created GLaDOS's backstory with Carolyn and Cave Johnson. And, Carolyn is Jay Pinkerton's mother's name. She is Carolyn, which I think is so sweet. With finding out the backstory of Carolyn, being put into the computer at Aperture Science, becoming the computer, and how she didn't want that to happen, and how during the game of Portal 2, spoiler alert, GLaDOS realizing, seeing the picture on the wall and realizing, oh, that woman looks familiar. She looks very intelligent. She looks very capable. I liked that part. But that, that GLaDOS also realizes where she came from. And then, of course, at the end, spoiler alert, at the end of the game, she deletes. But, the fact about they're, and it's because of the writers. I give the writers all of this credit, Eric and Jay and Chet and Mike Moraski, the man who wrote all the music. Him coming up with the turret opera at the end. I love Want You Gone. I think Jonathan Colton really brought his best game to the closing credits song again. But as everybody at Valve said, of course everybody expected a song over the closing credits. And he wrote a wonderful song. But the turret opera was something that the player did not expect.
I can safely say I was not expecting that when the elevator's door opened and they were there, and next they just started singing. That was beautiful yet surprising.
Well, I have to admit that the first time I saw it, I started to cry. Because, all those voices are me. Every single one. And because I recorded, this vocal line, and I recorded this vocal line, and I recorded this vocal line, and the deep lines, and I also Mike Moraski and and Caro Bain, I recorded that, and I made up the words out of my bad Italian. I made up all the words on the spot, but we did so many different takes that Mike Moraski actually had to send me the cut that he used finally, so that, I and Mike Moraski are the only two people who know exactly what I said. But
And me.
And my husband. And my husband. He does know.
I'm one of the two people.
But you see, he and I are, the royal we. Talking to someone who lives in a monarchy.
Okay, I'm going to give you an exclusive, man.
No, what? Don't give away anything.
Caboose, I'm going to give you an absolute exclusive. I am holding here in my hand a check from Valve to Ellen for her latest GLaDOS gig, and the envelope that contains the check to her agent for his commission. You have it on your cam. There they are, the check and the envelope for the agent's check.
Yes, but
real
only
showbiz right here.
But only Caboose is seeing this. Only Caboose gets to see it, because Caboose is special.
Oh, thank you.
He's the car in the train.
But where was I? Remind me. I've lost my train of thought. About the recording for the turret opera. Mike Moraski, I'm sure he's been interviewed too, but, the way the turret opera got created, and it really boils down to the fact that Valve wanted to do something that the player would not expect. And it ended up being the turret opera. And I must say that one of the reasons that, it sounds like an aria is because Mike wanted me to use my, we say legit sound or operatic sound in the recording session. And that's why, it sounds like opera, because that's what Mike wanted me to do, and Bill Van Buren, that's what they wanted me to do. Unlike Still Alive, and unlike Want You Gone. So
I'm going to the bank.
Bye, honey.
Bye, sweetie
My
pie.
husband's going to the bank.
Bye,
Bye,
Mom.
John.
Or,
Caboose.
yeah, Snow Goose, whatever you got. Yeah.
So, you know, it really is. And when we finished the game, I said to, you know, all the Valve folks, I said, you know, I feel like we just finished a movie. It feels like a movie, you know, first act, second act, third act, you know, final credits song, you know, final I mean, I must say that I knew Want You Gone was going to be at the end of the whole thing because I knew it was going to be over the credits. But I didn't really understand sort of where the Turret Opera was going to be or what it was going to be used for. Or, you know, Mike had said something to me because, you know, there is an expression, it ain't over until the fat lady sings, which I think, you know, it's an allusion to opera, but it was actually said by a baseball person. And I'm not even sure which baseball person said it, but somebody who was connected to baseball said it, and I'm sure all sorts of people know, oh yeah, that was, you know, Tommy Lasorda, or that was, you know, George Steinbrenner, or that was, you know, that was Yogi Berra. But there's an expression, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And the folks at Valve had this idea about the turrets. And of course, you know, the little fattest turret, you know, she looks like a little I'm sorry to all my other opera singer colleagues, but you know, she looks like a little fat pudgy opera singer. And it is so sweet. It is just so sweet and so beautiful in this funny little quirky kind of, you know, weird machine-like way that I think it's total brilliance, and all I did was lend my voice to it. It was the brilliance of Mike Moraski, it was the brilliance of the game creators, the artists, you know, the visual artists involved. I mean, I was the lucky one. I was the lucky one.
Okay. One last question before we wrap up.
Sure.
What have you got planned for the future? I mean, what things can we expect?
Well, as I said, Caboose, you know, I'm a stage actor. Quite frankly, I don't know what is next. I am making some personal appearances. My husband and I, John Patrick Lowrie and Ellen McLain, we're going to be in Chicago in July. Oh, and now I can't remember the name of it. Oh, this is going to drive me crazy. Oh, I'm so old, Caboose. I'm so old. But we're gonna make appearances at anime. Oh, it's Midwest Anime. That's what it is. I call it anime. Midwest Anime at the Pheasant Run Resort in St. Charles, Illinois, which is near Chicago, and we're going to be there like July 14 and 15. And then I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee is my hometown. That's where I'm from. And I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, October 21 through 23. And then the big news, I'm going to be in Birmingham, United Kingdom, April, and John is too, April 13, 14, and 15, 2012, at Kitacon in Birmingham, April 13, 14, and 15. And Caboose, you better be there.
I'll try and make arrangements to get there.
I'm throwing down the gauntlet. You better be there, fella.
I'll definitely make my arrangements then.
Okay, because I'll be disappointed if I don't get to see you in the flesh.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But like I said, I'm an actor, so I'm always auditioning for stuff, but and even for voice work, I've got some. I did do some voices on a game which will be released, but until it's released, I can't say anything about it.
Fair enough.
But honey, I'm always looking for my next job. That's life in theater, life in the arts. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I have an enormous amount of fun. And so does my husband.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. You have been an amazing guest, and so was your husband when he popped in.
Well, he had to run off to the bank, so. But you can interview him sometime, and he's a lot funnier than I am.
I would definitely love to speak to your husband. He does seem like a really fun guy.
He is. Well, Caboose, I think you're great, and I've had an enormously fun time chatting with you, and I just think it's thrilling that we have been talking across the continents, across the world. That is just so amazing to me, as I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I'm pushing it. It's great talking to you, really great talking to you, and I say hello to all of the Portal and Portal 2 and Team Fortress fans and Half-Life 2 fans, Team Fortress 2 fans, and I want to thank you all, and I'm so pleased that people are enjoying the games, and I'm so pleased that people are enjoying the Portal games, because the Portal games are indeed the coolest thing I have ever done in my whole life.
Well, you never heard it here, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellen McLain. And of course, I've been Caboos15. Catch you next time.